Hello everyone.
Hello everyone. We're on holiday at the moment.
We're in our lovely kitchen, right by the beach, and yesterday was amazing. We had it was over 10 degrees.
Blue skies
There was
all day.
people in shorts and t-shirts running around.
And it's February.
In the natural swimming pool.
What's going on?
Yeah, it's incredible. So there we go.
Yeah.
Anyway, we thought we'd do a short video today on something that was of great interest to us and gave us some perspective as we were running around the beach yesterday, looking at the sunset as well, regarding a film that most people have seen. And if you haven't seen it, then I would strongly advise you to, because it will become one of your favourites. Well,
it's one of our favourites.
Yeah. Shawshank Redemption.
Brilliant film.
Brilliant film. But we saw many metaphors within three of the main characters within that particular film.
Well, in the whole film really, but in
Yeah.
those three characters that we picked out as being the ones that we would say particularly stood out, that you could
So many
do an
different
analogy
things.
towards
Yeah.
people leaving the watchtower. It's
All the way through the film, we were
funny.
going, yes, that we can relate to that within the Watchtower life.
if we wanted, if we could, if we knew how to split films up and everything, we would edit them and just put in the bits that we think. And I think that you would totally agree with exactly what we're saying.
There will be some clever people out there
that will be able to do that. And if
we
you can
know
do
a
that,
few.
do it, because it'd be a good film to do it to.
Please do, because some of the sayings, the one-liners in there are amazing.
It'd be like,
Yeah.
yeah. Anyway,
name the three characters.
Was the three that we picked out as being people that we would sort of do an analogy towards the Watchtower with was Brooks, the older chap, Red, and Andy. Andy's obviously the main guy that the story's all about in the first place, but those are the three that we picked up on.
Sure.
You could go to the governor, and you could go to the warden and all the people that are in there, like the officers. But you'll all have an individual that you might go, oh, I know someone like that. But those are the three that we picked up on. And just going to Brooks, for example, been in there his entire life. He's been in prison his entire life. In his 70s, wasn't he, when he was released?
Something
And I
like
think
that,
he went in when he was early 20s. So 50 odd years of being institutionalized within a very rigid, formulated, organized system. That suddenly he's got his parole, and it suddenly hits him. He's going to be out on the outside, and he didn't want to go. He didn't want to leave. He wanted to do something in order to keep himself within that organized situation, but eventually he can't, so he ends up going out and getting released.
He was somebody important
Yeah.
inside there. Now, whether or not you've been disfellowshipped, or you've disassociated yourself, or you faded away, quite often you can feel that you had a role to play in the Watchtower. Whether you're an elder, a circuit overseer, district overseer, a pioneer, minister or
Working in the book room,
working somewhere, doing your little privileged job.
Yeah. Brooks was a librarian, and
that was his job.
He'd been in there ever since.
Everybody knew him as that. And so being outside of that, suddenly on the outside world, the world had become a very hectic place. There was one or two cars when he went into prison. There were thousands of cars when he came out.
He made the comment that the world went and got themselves in one big hurry.
One big hurry.
So suddenly it's gone from a very slow, sleepy place to suddenly everybody's on the move. And obviously he's now in a position where he's finding that overpowering. It'd be a little bit like somebody being put in a coma 25, 30 years ago. Mobile phones didn't exist, to suddenly being woken up now and seeing all of the technology, the YouTube videos and things that are going out now. It would be a massive overload to them, which is exactly what it was like. But that they didn't even have music in the prison or anything. In fact, you were saying, weren't you, the thing you found funny was when Andy was badgering the government to send books and to have a grant to build up the library, because the library, although they had one, was so small it fitted in like a broom closet room. And Andy wrote and wrote and wrote, insisting that they get more knowledge. And all of a sudden they got this bombardment
with tons of knowledge.
Yes,
coming through.
And they had records and all sorts being sent. So when Andy first had this delivered to the prison, he decides to put a record on and puts it on the speaker so everybody in the prison could hear it. And Red was the one that was narrating over the top of the film, saying that it was like you could have been anywhere, and this woman was singing, and suddenly everybody in the prison stopped what they were doing and it took them somewhere outside into a freedom.
Yeah.
And that's the difference with not hearing music for a long time and then suddenly hearing it, and suddenly it becomes a wonderful thing.
And what he did by doing that, if you can remember, those that have watched the film, he locked the door, he put the music on, he was doing something that he was completely wrong in not conforming with prison standards, and he shared this music with the whole of the prison, and everybody stood and was listening to this angelic voice, and it took their spirits somewhere else. And we could think of a few people that want to share information like that, can't we? But then if you're in the congregation and you were trying to do that in the congregation, you would end up like Andy did, and he was then broken.
Put in the hole.
Broken by the governor. Shunned.
Isolated.
Solitary confinement, shunning, disfellowing, call it what you will. And they broke that man. They kept him in. Now and again they'd look in through the door. No, he's not had enough yet. give him another month. And so he lived in darkness, as it's so called. But it was done for a reason, to break him. But that's another part of the film. Was really worth a watch. But what that did, when he came out and he was discussing it at the table with the other prisoners, one of the things that Red got annoyed about was that Andy talked about hope. And Red at the time, although wanted to believe everything Andy was saying about hope, they were all in an impossible position.
Can I just point out also that Red had, over the years, been to several, almost like judicial committee. It was like a parole board.
Probation.
Where they sit
parole
there
board, yeah.
and they sit there and they say yes or no as to whether your attitude has changed, whether your ability and your rehabilitation has been done in order to reinstate you back into society. What does that sound like?
Yeah.
But yes, so it's a big stamp of a yes or a no. And he had been rejected so many times that he was getting to the point where hope seemed a non-existent thing.
Yeah.
And that's why when Andy was talking about it, Red got annoyed. Because he was looking at that and going, that's a dirty word, because there's no point in hoping.
Don't bring hope into this. Don't bring hope into this prison. How dare you do that to people? Raise their spirits up and then have it viciously taken away from them, because there is no hope in the prison. That's what Red was trying to get at. And we saw metaphors of that with the Watchtower.
Well, when Brooks was sent, when he got out, he was given a little job, wasn't he, to rehabilitate him back into society.
Packing bags
because
in the shopping mall.
It's a little bit, when you're when you're in the organisation, you're told not to associate with people in the world. You're told not to have anything to do with them, or as little to do with them as possible. So when Brooks suddenly is now in society, he doesn't know what to do. He doesn't know where to go. He doesn't know anything about anything, because he's been isolated for so long. So this is exactly what we were saying, that it's a little like when we left, people were saying, well, where are you going to go? What are you going to do?
Yeah.
Where are you going to go? Because they're so scared that, as Mark was saying, that when Brooks was inside, he was something. He had a job, everybody knew him, everybody respected him. Suddenly being put on the outside, everybody's looking at him as if he's the odd man out. Well, who is he?
Because he
would look a little bit weird, because he wouldn't know about what to do. And but somebody that age in the world, everybody would look at as if they already knew what they should be doing. But he had to relearn everything over again, and that's a very hard thing to do for anyone. But for somebody who's had an entire life of being told when to go to the bathroom, when to go to sleep, when to wake up, when to go to recreation, and all these things, being told what to do for so many years, but suddenly to have the freedom to have to make those decisions for yourself
and start thinking for yourself.
Massive overload.
It was, and this is where we saw one of the parallels with the Watchtower Society, because you are told how to dress, how to think, how to dob people in if they're saying the wrong thing, how to conform basically on everything, when to go out in the ministry, what meetings you must attend, how to even answer up on everything that's now written in front of you with the same created questions for you. Everything was done for you.
What you can look at, what you're not allowed to look at. With regard to what you're allowed to say, you say something that's not quite right, or you ask the wrong questions because it's a little bit too free thinking. Suddenly you're being analysed and looked at as if you're weird.
Sure. And so when you look at all of that, you don't have a life anymore.
No.
You put on, as they call it, the new personality. Well, now we all know that what they're doing is they're stripping you bare and putting you into a mental prison where you belong, where they can keep you trapped and conformed. That's exactly the same as what's going on with Brooks as he is in this prison. But then he suddenly finds himself on the outside for whatever reason. So many people, JWs, do find themselves on the outside for doing something maybe a little bit wrong. And here's where the story can be seen with some importance, because everybody can relate to this type of thing once they've been outed from the congregations.
And then the main character, Andy, we were looking at him and thinking he was somebody who was wrongly accused. So he was put in prison for years and years and years, and the things that happened to him in prison were horrendous. I mean, the treatment from everything from the fellow inmates right the way up to the warden himself, manipulating situations. And for example, when the warden realised that what Andy had been put into prison for was falsely accused, therefore he should have been a free man, he decided to go against that because of the monetary value and the fact that it was something that was going to benefit him. Self-interest. So you could view him as the governing body, maybe the whole Watchtower Corporation at the top, looking down at this person actually doing something for them, but don't care about that person's individuality and life and freedom and love and life. I'm more interested in the fact of what this person can do for me. So it was very, very similar, we felt, to what the Watchtower do to everybody on the publisher side.
Here's another example with regards to that. Let's look at another parallel with information that might be suddenly brought forward. So many times now we are reading about these experiences every single day coming through to us and to everybody else who are out there active against the Watchtower, of information that comes forward is then shared with the organisation through the bodies of elders in a lot of cases, where it's hushed up, it's hidden, it's put away, it's concealed, it's controlled. And this is exactly what happened to Andy. New information came to light that could have freed him.
Do you know what just made me, just made me smile even more? Andy had to do certain things that were put in an envelope. He had to do all the accounts, put in an envelope and buried in a safe. But the Watchtower, he didn't, the warden didn't even touch the envelope. Andy had to have his handprints on it and had to be the one to put it in the thing so that he could do, no fingerprints on there from me. So he had to be the one to do it. But, it was just, that's hiding it in an envelope and sticking it in the wall where it's forgotten and no one knows it's there. It's out of sight, out of mind.
Another thing,
that's just funny.
It is funny. It's a good one. Another one with Andy is he took his time.
Yeah.
He was in prison for a very long time, but he worked out a plan to get out.
Well, first of all, he went along with it for years and years and years. He was actually in there, just playing along and just going and functioning along. And then all of a sudden, it was one little thing. The fact that he knew that the warden knew he was innocent that triggered him. But he kept up the whole, and this is what we think about conscious class, kept up the whole pretense of going
working
through
within the organisation.
All the time he was thinking, I have an exit plan.
I'm out of here.
And I'm going to do it. But anyway, we were thinking about his relationship again with Red and how he was obviously giving Red hope. Through his eyes, Red found hope. In Andy's dreams of what Andy would do once he ever was released, and it made us look at that and think, right, well then when Red was released, when Brooks eventually going back to the elderly chap, he actually hung himself because he couldn't cope. And he overloaded him and he overwhelmed him. And he hung himself in this particular room that he
had no one to go to, no support.
The halfway house, no support. So he took his own life. Again, very similar to what people, when they leave the Watchtower, some of them do because they don't have that support network. They don't have anywhere else to go.
Shunning, for instance.
And they can't cope with it, which is so understandable because of the indoctrination and the isolation and the, it's just, that's just such an perfect analogy with that. But then going back to Red, he was put in exactly the same room once he was released. Again, being institutionalized for years in that environment. And then he's suddenly remembering what Andy had told him, and Andy gave him a goal. And he said about this cornfield in this particular place with a long brick wall, and at the end of this brick wall, under this big tree, there'll be a rock that looks out of place, and under there will be something for you. So Red had something to focus on. Now, if he hadn't got that something to focus on, I don't know what would have happened to Red. If he didn't have that something to have his eye on, what do I want to do? I want to have a goal and I want freedom. So he broke his parole and he violated it, and actually went to find this cornfield, looked along, found this wall.
Took him a long time.
Found it eventually, and he's looking around, and inside is a note. And in that note it says, if you're reading this, Red, do you remember the type place that I said you could come and we could meet up and what I wanted to do? And he did, he remembered it, and there was money in there, and it was freedom in a box that he had to find and dig for. But once he found it, he was free, because he had the information and he had the means to do it.
The assistance, and somebody that loved him.
And the dream.
It was all there. It was in that box.
Yeah.
Parallels with that, information, recovery.
But the reason why that box ended up being there was because of Andy. And Andy eventually escaped. And it was his escape. We won't tell you exactly how he did it, apart from the fact that he had to crawl through piles of I don't want to say anything other than shit to get to the end. And he crawled through these pipes of sewage to get to the end. And other people were saying, I don't know how he did that. He had to go through everything that everybody would possibly imagine, throwing up on the way because it was so painful. The smell was overpowering, the dirt that was around him, and he crawled and he ended up coming out the end. He saw the light at the end of that tunnel, got out the end, went into a load of fresh water with the rain on him at the end.
It was so
and
liberating
it washed
to watch.
him clear. And that to me was exactly like leaving the watchtower.
Being free.
You might have to go through a heck of a lot of shit to get where you want to get, or you have to go through horrible things and painful things and really what you wouldn't wish upon your worst enemy, but that is something that you have to go through in order to get to where you want to be. And everybody will be different, so everybody's exit is going to be it's going to be very different from one to another. But at the end of the day, however you have to do that, whatever you have to do to get out, when you do get out, what you do when you get out is very important, because of the indoctrination and the institutionalization of what you've been through. And recognise that, because it is such a massive thing that we've all been in. It's not an easy thing.
No, it's very difficult, because you an important word there, the indoctrination, the repetitive indoctrination, that mind control is locked into your minds, into the psyche. Everything that you've ever thought about has been trained for years in many cases, or lifetimes in many cases. And so when you're free from those clutches, from that grip that they put on you, you then have to compensate that. You need to start filling your mind with alternative information, whether it be scriptural or whether it be some other recovery program that you're looking at, to give you an alternative view, alternative arguments that allow you then to start making and deciphering what you went through. And then eventually, as each individual must make their own decisions on what their belief system is, if any, they will have to make it themselves. But they are free from being controlled, free from being told this is the only way, because it isn't. And everybody has to make that freedom of choice. But the only way you can do that is breaking free, like Andy did from this prison. And that's why we wanted to share this, because there are once you watch the film, you'll see so many other things.
Yeah. I mean, if you see me mouthing, don't keep wobbling, it's because this tripod's on a table, and if I do that, it's really wobbly. It's a lovely big table, but it does have a sense of when you gesture or bang it or knock it, it wobbles. And because this is on it, I was thinking you're going to all feel seasick. And I know we're by the seaside, and I know we've got portholes, but I don't want you to feel like you're on a ship.
Okay.
So I keep going. Oh.
So what else was it in that film?
That was the main things. It was the three people that eventually were all released or got out by one form of another, and it was interesting how they all were different. But the two although their one got out, and he still broke his parole, so he was released, but he still broke. He had to do something in order to get the true freedom. Andy he actually escaped, and he went through absolute hell on earth to get out, but he did it. And what we were thinking was, it just rounds up the Watchtower in its entirety, in the sense of what they went through with the control. You must do this, you must do that, you can't do this, you can't do that. And for example, when Mark and I went through our when we were disfellowshipped years ago, for being married, although it wasn't being married, it was not accepting counsel, they knew that we were actually free a month after our disfellowshipping, but they decided to keep us out of the congregation for 3 further years. And that reminded me of the warden, knowing Andy was free and actually should have been free, but decided to keep him entrapped in that isolated thing. Anyway, he kept him in. He could have released him, but he decided not to. It was his decision. And the same, I felt that it was the elders' decision to not do that to us. It had nothing to do with God. No. It was an individual decision by individual imperfect people. Yeah. And that's all I wanted to say, was that it just rung true to me, rung home. And
one of the other parts to it is that towards the end, the governor gets caught out. He's exposed because this stuff was sent off. This information was sent off to the press, to the police, and he got found out, and he was exposed, and he decided to finish it himself. As for the other main prison warden, he was arrested for the crimes that he committed.
In knowing about it, but didn't do anything to stop it. And this is we're going to do another video in a moment. It's one of the most, to us, ruthless, heartless things that the Watchtower do. Yeah. And yet people can't see it for what it really is, and it's to do with the blood dogma. But that's another subject.
But just to say that if you haven't watched Shawshank Redemption,
watch it. It's a good film.
Then you probably might not make much sense of what we've been saying. But if you have watched it and it is one of your favourite films, then I think you'll probably be able to relate to a lot of the things that we're saying. Be interested in a lot of the comments that come out from this, because there will be lots of things in that film that other people can relate to, that they can parallel with the Watchtower. We've just named a few here, but there are many out there. So, but the thing is about getting out, being free, but filling your mind with information, with a recovery program, educate yourself, and to make sure that you're not on your own, because you don't have to be on your own now. There are many of us out there that are willing to reach out and touch and be with people, support them.
The other thing that made me laugh was when they were tossing the cells, the word contraband came up, about having things they shouldn't have, and I just thought, I wonder how many witnesses out there have got contraband in the way of things on their PC that they look at with regards to YouTube videos and crisis of conscience books and things that they they'll start tossing cells soon. They'll go to your house and start tossing things around, trying to find what they're looking for.
Give them half a chance.
Be careful. Make sure you're hiding stuff. Hide it properly.
Elders are doing now room searches.
Actually, Andy hid his little pickaxe thing in a Bible. Maybe you should do that, because they don't know Bibles, do they?
Yeah.
Not even unless it's the
They won't want to look in there, will they? That's a good point. I like that one. I did contraband in the Bible, like Andy did.
This is not New World Translation. Use another one, King James or something. They won't even touch it.
They won't touch that. Anyway.
You could put a Bible cover on the outside of a Crisis of Conscience book.
Oh, there you go. There's another thought.
Take it to the Kingdom Hall with you. With the Bible cover on it.
One of them grey covers.
New World Translation. There you go.
That's some interesting reading while you're in the Kingdom Hall.
Yeah. Brilliant.
All right. Well, thanks for listening, everybody, and speak soon.
Take
Bye
care.
for now.
Bye.